The five people I want to begin with are the five names of those staffers, those Democratic staffers, who resigned in protest of President Trump's policies, in protest of President Trump's misconduct, which has led to this impeachment, when their member started talking to the Republicans about switching parties. And what we see there is the principled resignation. And the reason why I wanted to put their names on the screen is the principled resignation is the thing we have not seen in the Trump administration these 3 years, no matter how many lines Donald Trump has crossed.
Yeah, and that's been very unfortunate. What we've seen is that my Republican colleagues continue to put party over principle, corruption in this case over the Constitution, and demagoguery over democracy. That's been quite unfortunate. These five individuals have demonstrated principled public service. These were obviously individuals who agreed to staff Jeff Van Drew, who was elected as part of a historic midterm election with Democrats ascending into the majority, committed to fighting for the people to work on things like health care costs, as infrastructure, increasing pay for everyday Americans dealing with gun violence, and at the same time serving as a check and balance on an out-of-control administration. Their principal has obviously decided, in this case referring to their former boss, to go in a different direction, and they've made a selfless decision at a very difficult moment for our country and our democracy.
Congressman, another tough decision we're seeing made are these freshman Democrats who took Republican districts, who are stepping forward, telling their former Republican districts that they are voting to impeach the president. I know you've been very concerned over this last year, actually, and especially including the last 90 days, about how difficult this process has been for them. What is your reaction to what you're seeing in their decisions?
Well, the class of 2018 is an extraordinary group of Americans who stepped forward at a very vulnerable time for our democracy and decided that they were going to run for office, having already done so much for the country in the national security space, as veterans, as doctors, as nurses, as educators, have come to Congress to do the right thing on behalf of the people that they were elected to represent. This is a very difficult decision for any member. Impeachment is a very serious, solemn, and sober moment. But when you layer on top of that, these are members from very tough districts with constituents who've got very sharp opinions that differ on how to most appropriately hold this president accountable. Yet they've decided to elevate their oath of office, elevate their constitutional responsibility, be guided by their conscience, unlike many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and certainly unlike the president.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.